Barcelona couldn't afford Messi. The greatest player in their history wanted to stay, had agreed to a deal, but it didn't matter. The numbers didn't work, so he left. 6 months later, they signed Ferran Torres, then Aubameyang, then Raphinha, then Koundé, then Lewandowski. That's the problem. It shouldn't work because they didn't fix the crisis. They did something else entirely, something that kept them alive in the short term and created a completely different problem for later. Because what Barcelona did next, most clubs would never be allowed to do. This is how Barcelona sold their future to survive the present. First, you need to understand how bad it actually got. Because it's easy to hear Barcelona financial crisis and think rich club problems, billionaire owners, it'll sort itself out. It was nothing like that. When Joan Laporta returned as president in 2021, Barcelona were carrying a debt of around 1.3 billion euros. Not millions, billions. And the debt wasn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It had consequences inside La Liga's financial system. La Liga operates a salary cap. Every club gets a limit on what they can spend, based on their revenues and financial health. Barcelona's limit collapsed. They went from one of the highest allowances in the league to being told that they could barely register existing contracts. New signings, renewals, blocked. The numbers didn't add up, and the club has been open about that. And then came the moment that made this undeniable. Messi. He wanted to stay. Barcelona wanted him to stay. A new contract had been agreed, but La Liga's rules meant that they couldn't register it. They could not make the numbers work. So the greatest player in the club's history walked out the door. Not abstract accounting, not a PR problem, the wall. And they had hit it. So, you're Barcelona. You've just lost Messi. You can't register players. And the wage cap is gone. What do you do? Barcelona's answer: sell the future. They called it the economic levers. And the idea, stripped right back, was this: Barcelona had future income that they were owed, TV rights money, revenue from their media and audiovisual assets. Money that was coming, but just not yet. So they sold it early. They sold a chunk of their future La Liga TV rights. They sold stakes in their production assets. They found investors willing to pay up front in exchange for a share of what Barcelona would earn down the line. They spent money they hadn't earned yet. In any other business, that's a red flag. And over several rounds of these deals, they raised enough cash to shift their financial position, and critically, to push their La Liga salary cap back up. Suddenly, they could register players. Suddenly, they could sign. Suddenly, at least on paper, they looked like a functioning top club again. Laporta called it a recovery. That's not the right word. What it actually was a calculated gamble. Here's what the levers actually did. That future TV money is now gone. The media asset revenue, someone else owns a piece of it now. The income stream that was supposed to fund the next decade is already spent. The levers bought Barcelona time, but they did not cancel the debt. And this is where it gets worse, because this strategy only works under one condition: Barcelona have to stay elite. Think about what that means. You've given up future income to sign players today. Those players have to perform. The team has to win. The club has to keep generating top level revenue, Champions League money, global commercial deals, full stadiums. The moment that any of that drops, fewer Champions League runs, weaker TV ratings, or lower commercial value, the entire model looks completely different. This isn't just risk. It's a trap with no exit if things go wrong. Because if this fails, they don't just fall behind, they fall hard. Critics have said it clearly. The levers mortgaged the future instead of fixing the underlying problem. The numbers shifted. The salary cap improved, but the structural weakness, that's still there. And there's proof. It's 2024, 3 full years after the levers, 3 years of recovery headlines, 3 years of Laporta saying that the plan is working. And Barcelona are still fighting to keep players registered. This is a smoking gun. Barcelona signed Dani Olmo in the summer of 2024. Good player, significant signing. The club said that they had the financial room to register him under La Liga's rules. Then, La Liga and the Federation rejected the registration. Then, there were disputes over a €100 million VIP seat deal and how Barcelona were accounting for it. Then, emergency appeals. Then, Spain's National Sports Council had to step in to keep the registrations temporarily active. And then, the whole saga of whether Olmo and Pau Victor could even play. And for how long. This is not what a recovered club looks like. Because this isn't 2021. This isn't the middle of the crisis. This is years later. After all the levers, after all the announcements, after all the weird back press conferences. And they still couldn't register a player without a fight. Years later, and nothing was actually stable. The registration system is a pressure test. Every window, every contract, every renewal, Barcelona had to prove that the numbers held up. They keep having to fight to pass it. That's not recovery. That's survival on repeat. Now, to be fair, Laporta has a case. And it's not nothing. Barcelona say that they achieved a positive ordinary profit in 2023-24. Wage costs came down sharply from the peak. Commercial revenues improved. The club says that they reached or regained one-to-one status under La Liga's rules. Meaning, for every euro that they earn, they can spend €1 on wages. And that's a real change from where they were. On the pitch, they won La Liga in 2023. They stayed competitive in Europe. This is not a club in obvious decline. Laporta's argument is simple. We inherited a disaster. We stabilised it, we competed at the top level, and the numbers are now improving. Millions of Barcelona members believe him. They voted him back in. They think that the rescue is working. And that's why this debate stays alive. Because he can point to real progress. But progress is not the same as solved. Improving is not the same as fixed. And the Olmo saga, in the middle of all that progress, is a crack in the wall that won't close. So, here's where we land. Barcelona survived. Give them that. At one point, it genuinely wasn't clear they would. 1.3 billion in debt. No wage cap, no Messi. It looked like a club that could spend years just fighting to stay relevant. They didn't. They found a way through. But surviving and fixing are two different things. Barcelona didn't solve the crisis, they just delayed it. They spent money they hadn't earned yet. They traded future certainty for present competitiveness. They made a high-stakes bet that they could stay elite long enough that the numbers would eventually work out. Maybe they will. Maybe this ends with Laporta vindicated, the president who saved the club. But every new registration fight, every accounting dispute, every debt headline, that's not old news resurfacing. That's the future they sold arriving. This was not a clean recovery. It was controlled damage. They didn't escape the crisis by getting healthy. They escaped it
by cashing in tomorrow to keep today alive. And tomorrow keeps coming. Here's where things stand right now. Laporta just won re-election. Strong backing, the people closest to the club, who've watched every move, every lever, and every fight, they still believe in the plan. So here's the question that you're left with. Is Laporta the president who pulled off the most audacious financial rescue in football history, or is he the man who bought time brilliantly and the real reckoning still hasn't landed? Genius rescue or delayed collapse? We'll find out. I want to know what you think. Are Barcelona on borrowed time, or is it impossible for a club of their stature to fall into such a mess? Drop your comment below. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button. It really helps the video reach the right audience. Subscribe to Sports Cash Files, where money and sport combine. See you in the next episode.